So as Dr. Ahmed said, we will be talking about the practical applications of health economics today. Just a quick recap on what we discussed last week. First of all, we introduced the concept of health economics in general. Health economics is defined as the comparative analysis of alternative courses of action in terms of both their cost and consequences. So basically, we are comparing two or more alternatives that are usually healthcare technologies, either drugs, devices, or even procedures sometimes. So we compare their costs and consequences to inform decision making. So we discussed also the different types of economic evaluations, cost minimization analysis, cost benefit analysis, cost effectiveness analysis, and cost utility analysis, which is the most commonly usually used. We also discussed the differences between RCTs and real world evidence, and how to link the data that comes from either RCT or real world evidence, and how we use both evidence from RCT or real world to create models that can inform decision making. We also touched on different modeling techniques such as decision trees and Markov models, and these are widely used in economic evaluations. So today we will be talking about the practical side, since we were introduced to the theoretical part of health economics and how we can utilize the economic evidence in decision making in healthcare, and what are the difficulties and challenges and how we can address them. Also, maybe we will talk a little bit about the opportunities for someone with background on health economics or pharmacoeconomics. So generally, we use health economics as a tool that can help us in setting our priorities. Imagine that you have several options, and this is the real world scenario currently. Luckily, we are in the era of scientific advances. We have a lot of effective options. However, the budgets are limited. So it's a priority setting or prioritization tool that can help you in your decision making. It can help you in also addressing the resource requirements for any technology to be implemented, and planning for budget in general, negotiation, developing drug use policy, and formulary management. And we will talk in details about all these uses. So let's start with the most important use for health economic evidence, which is the health technology assessment. Dr. Ahmed, if you don't mind, if we can have the first question.
Yes, sure. So now we have the first question about health technology assessment. So you can choose between first choice complies of cost effectiveness analysis of new technology. Second one is studies for the medical, social, ethical, and economic implications. Third is assess the cost consequences of adopting new technology. So please answer the question. Okay, we see some answers. Looking for more. Okay, we have now more than 50% participated. So we can have a few more seconds. Okay, we can have 10 seconds more. Yes. Okay, I believe we can end the poll. Okay. Okay, oh, I see more people are answering.
Maybe the question is difficult.
Yeah, yes.
Which is great. If the audience are familiar with the answer, then
That
no
would be
need
great,
to
yes.
session. Yeah.
Okay, we can end now the question and we'll share the results. So I can see that 50% voted for the second one and nearly equal, 21% for the first, 29 to the third, not nearly equal, it's 20 and 30. So we have 20, 50, 30 approximately.
Excellent. So the correct answer is the second answer. So 50% of
Okay.
our audience are right. However, the first and third answer are also correct, because if you want to study the medical, social, ethical, economic implications of a technology, then you have also to comprise of cost effectiveness analysis, and you have to also calculate the cost consequences. However, the second answer is the exact definition of health technology assessment. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed.
Thank you so much.
This takes us to the next slide, which is the definition of health technology assessment. Basically, the International Association of HTA defines it as a multidisciplinary field of policymaking and analysis that studies the medical, social, ethical, and economic implication of using any health technology. So you're not only accounting for the clinical or economic implications, but you also need to consider the ethical issues, whether there is political issues or even social issues. The International Society for Pharmacoeconomics and Outcome Research defines it as a form of policy research that examines the short and long-term consequences of technology from aspects of safety, efficacy, patient-reported outcomes, real-world effectiveness, cost effectiveness, as well as social, legal, ethical, and political aspects. So if you want to adapt a technology, even if it is a healthcare technology, you don't only consider the healthcare implications or the impacts on the budget, but you need to think of other issues. For example, whether there are ethical, political, legal issues, or even social, because this disease is not affecting only the patient, it has impact on the whole society. And this is what HTA is about. So we have, due to the increasing pressure on decision makers to find cost-effective solutions, several countries, especially in Europe, have developed a health technology assessment agency. And these are some of the well-known agencies, such as NICE, EQUIG in Germany, CADIT in Canada. This table shows all the most important international HTA agencies. For example, PPAC in Australia, and PPAC, by the way, is the first HTA agency that was established in early 90s, I believe. We have NICE in UK, EQUIG in Germany, CADIT in Canada, IFA in Italy, and TLV in Sweden. And mainly in every single European country, there is some sort of agency or institute in which the main task is to conduct economic evaluation. The role of these agencies range from pricing, formulary management, reimbursement decisions, and also development of practice guidelines. So basically, the HTA agency or the HTA process in general supports decision-making in healthcare. It supports clinicians in making a prescribing decision, in developing practice guidelines, knowing who are those who will benefit from the technology, perhaps the subgroup of patients who will be the most cost-effective. can also support payers, whether public or private, in formulary management and deciding on level of coverage. It can help hospital management and making decision regarding technology acquisition and formularies at hospital level. So how do HTA assessment fit in the decision-making process? Basically, and this is very important here because with the increase in interest in HTA in general, we will need to be more familiar with this process, even if we are not involved in. So basically, the manufacturer prepare a submission where it includes all the literature review, economic literature review, and the RCTs, in addition to economic analysis, and then it's filled in a template that is usually provided by the HTA agency. So they fill all the information, they submit it to HTA, and they call it dossier or submission. The agency assess all the data in the dossier, and then sometimes when this is not sufficient, they conduct independent review or ask third party to do the HTA for them, and then they make recommendation to payers. Payers, for their part, will make decision based on these recommendation. And a very important information here, a take-home message, is that HTA agencies do not conduct the economic analysis. They do not do the economic review. They actually assess the submission that is usually provided by the manufacturer. Also, we need to remember that HTA agencies do not make decisions. They only make recommendations to inform decision-making by payers. So what about our work? In fact, health economics in general is still, I would say, in its infancy, and we are still new to the concept. However, because we are suffering from the same challenges with regard to budget allocation, we see increasing interest from almost all countries. We have the HTA office in Egypt, led by Dr. Jihan Sisi. We have also in Saudi Arabia, we have the HTA unit that was recently established under MOH. We have the Drug Policy and Economic Center in National Guard. We have HTA unit in King Khalid University Hospital. There is also hospital level HTA at King Hussein Cancer Center in Jordan, and we have the INES in Tunisia. This is a very nice study that summarized the situation here in the Middle East. Sorry. So basically, if you remember, I mentioned ISPOR earlier. So basically, ISPOR is an international society that is interested in health economic and outcomes research, and we do have chapter in most of the countries in Middle East. There is the Arab Network, which is a network that comprises of all the chapters in the Arab world, and they met in the first regional conference 2 years ago, and this was a very productive meeting. They agreed to do a large study to assess the situation in the Middle East with regard to the implementation of health economics and HTA in general. So this summarizes all the conclusion and recommendations of the Arab ISPOR network. So basically, they are recommending work or investment in capacity, making decisions about HTA funding, who is going to fund this this agency, We need agreement also on legislation of HTA, deciding on scope of HTA implementation, transparency of data, and the importance of investment on local data and expertise by investment in more graduate and postgraduate courses in health economics. So this is with regard to the HTA, which is a decision-making agency at a national level. But let's talk about the use of health economics at hospital level, which I believe is relevant to most of the audience. Mainly the use of health economics in formulary management is linked in several studies with the cost-effective use of formulary management. So whenever you use economic evidence in your decision-making process in formulary management, this will lead to cost efficiency. So how can we use health economics at hospital level? First, it can support the inclusion or exclusion of a drug on or from the formulary. It can help, as I said, in ranking your needs or setting your priorities. It can help in developing practice guidelines or drug use policies. And also it can guide evidence-based negotiation with the industry. So in general, at hospital level, in most countries, the use of economic evidence is still limited. Most hospitals do not formally mandate conducting a pharmacoeconomic evaluation for drugs. Maximum, they will do a direct cost comparison of the acquisition costs of different alternatives. A couple of slides that can that assist the situation in Saudi Arabia. It is believed by most authors that the use of economic evidence in BNT in Saudi Arabia is still limited, mainly because of lack of expertise and lack of data. So I thought it might be useful for everybody to present to you our experience at the Drug Policy and Economic Center in National Guard Health Affairs in Saudi Arabia, which is the first center that looked at HTA or economic evaluation of drugs in the region. So this center was established, I believe, 15 to 20 years ago. At that time, nobody was talking about economic evaluation. So I'm sure that the beginning was very difficult. However, by now we have a very good experience. So this shows the flowchart of the formulary decision-making process. Mainly it's similar to most hospitals. So it starts with the addition request, which is a detailed justification from the requester of their request of adapting new technology. This will be followed by clinical evaluation and then pharmacoeconomic evaluation. And when we make a decision to adapt the technology, we develop a drug use policy. And then after 1 year of procuring the medication, we conduct a drug use evaluation to make sure that the physicians are compliant to our drug use policy. So as I said, we start with the clinical evaluation. At this initial stage, only clinical data concerning the convenience, safety, efficacy, quality of the product are discussed, and this is similar to most activities done by BNTs. And once the drug is proven to be effective, then we can talk about economic evaluation, because if technology or drug is not clinically effective, it cannot be cost effective, of course. So moving to the pharmacoeconomic evaluation. So pharmacoeconomic evaluation is a structured evidence-based process in the evaluation for medications. And usually it's done with someone, by someone with understanding of, general understanding of health economics and in modeling in particular, to be able to assess the submitted models by companies. It's usually done in a formal template and then submitted to the BNT. It includes all the relevant economic evaluation, including brand and generic names of the product. And when I say generic names, because we don't evaluate drugs by brand, because requesters are not allowed to say that we need this brand per se. They give us the generic name and we explore what is available in the market. And then we do a literature review of all published economic reports around the product. Then we present or we assess all the recommendations that are published by international HTA agencies. We focus on the ones that have healthcare system that is similar to our healthcare system, or the ones that publish their reports in details. We list all the therapeutic formulary alternatives to compare it to the new product. We also look at the recommended dosage regimens and the number of eligible patients. And this is very important and critical because it's allowing us to calculate the total budget impact of adapting this medication. It's very important for us to have an accurate number of eligible patients. So we ask our physicians to give an estimation, but we don't rely on this. We do I would say, a mini epidemiological study where we calculate based on prevalence, what would be the expected number of patients. We do cost analysis, whether it is budget impact model or if there is a submission by the company, and then we present our recommendations. And as I said, we are not here to make decision. We are here to provide the best available evidence that can help our members to vote. So in details, what are the elements of pharmacoeconomic evaluation review? As I said, we have literature review of pharmacoeconomic studies, where we include all the relevant published good quality studies. And this is very important. It's not similar to what we do with clinical evaluation, because in clinical evaluation, you have randomized controlled studies that are really controlled, that are with really good quality, regulated by several bodies, and most probably you will never see major bias with these studies. However, with economic studies, because they're done based on assumptions, there are tens of or dozens of sources of bias and uncertainty. So you need to assess the quality of those studies and very carefully. There are several checklists and tools to assess the quality of pharmacoeconomic studies, and any pharmacist or physician can use these studies. They're user-friendly and they can use the tools that are available online, and it can help you in assessing these studies. We also summarize the published recommendations from NICE, CADIT, and SMC, and if there are any other HTA agency that conducted a good report, we usually use it. However, we account for differences. We cannot generalize or blindly apply the decisions of these agencies, because most of the times the cost of drug or technology itself is different. The cost of alternatives is different, and also the cost of resource use. For example, hospitalization per day is the price of per day hospitalization in the UK is not the same as we have here. So we need to be careful when we look at these reports. We do also cost analysis, and this at least should include a direct comparison of the drug acquisition cost with all the therapeutic alternatives, whether they are available in your formulary or not available. If they are in the market, then you have to include them, because one of these technologies might turn to be more cost effective than the technology that you are evaluating. You need to consider all the relevant direct and indirect medical costs. And I need to note something here, that if there is an indirect or direct medical cost that is relevant but not important, then don't bother to waste your time and effort on those. Because, for example, sometimes you have high administration cost, but both technologies, the standard of care and the new technology, are associated with this cost. So why to bother in adding them to the evaluation? As I said, also, it's very important to calculate the size of patient population accurately to be able to calculate budget impact of the new technology. So what other elements that we can add? We talked about cost and effectiveness analysis, and would be a very good tool to compare the alternatives, especially if they're from the same disease area. However, it's not feasible to conduct cost effectiveness analysis at hospital level, because we all know that we are limited with capacity, and the approval rate of drugs is extremely high. Now we have from 50 to 70. I believe this year FDA approved the 70-something drug, if I'm not mistaken. So there is no B&T committee that have capacity to do cost effectiveness analysis for all the newly FDA or EMA approved drugs. So it's not feasible. However, if the company is providing cost effectiveness analysis, and it will be available with them because they have to submit it to international HTA agency, and they might invest little more on these models and try to localize them and submit them to you, then it would be very useful to use in the economic evaluation. But again, you need to be very careful with the assumptions, the numbers, and the whole model. The perfect tool would be budget impact analysis. Why? Because despite the fact that we are very interested in knowing the value of a product or the additional health gain for every additional real we spent, for example, but we still have other issue. Even if the value is established and you're 100% convinced that this is a cost-effective technology, sometimes you will be hit by the affordability. I know it's good, but I cannot afford it. So you need to, payers are really concerned about affordability, and you need to show them what would be the predicted or expected budget impact for this technology to decide if they want to allocate additional budget for it, or if a budget was exhausted, then they will have to reject it. As I said, we have also manufacturer submissions, which are analyses that are provided by the manufacturer and must be, as I said, carefully reviewed. You need to make sure that local or institution-specific costs are used. You need to make sure that the cost of all alternatives and the resource use in the model are extracted from your hospital. And then if the committee approved the drug, then we need to develop a drug use policy. And so a drug use policy will tell us who will prescribe the product. For example, if we want to restrict it to consultants only, to one indication only, to subgroup of patients, age limit, duration limit, quantity limits, any other limits that can promote the most cost-effective use of the adapted new technology. After that, we procure the medication, and we, after 1 year of the arrival of the first stock, we conducted drug use evaluation. So basically, we are assessing the utilization of the product in our institute, who is using it, what are the quantities, was our initial estimation correct, and whether the prescribers are adherent to our policy, and then the data is presented to the BNT again. So basically, this summarizes the whole process. We do have difficulties that are unique to us, and other difficulties at national level, and other difficulties, most of them are similar everywhere. So in general, if we talk about our region, most countries lack a national body that is responsible for commissioning economic evaluation. In addition to that, we don't have a official rules or set of guidelines that describe the whole process. As you can see, the process in National Guard was developed internally. It's nothing, it's not related to any national guidelines. We need to have guidelines that guide all researchers, not only payers, if they want to conduct cost effectiveness study. Of course, like any other country in the Middle East, we have issue with lack of data. We don't have registries, we don't have a database that can help us in carrying any type of studies. We don't have expertise in economics, and this is very important barrier. If you don't know how to use these tools, then you cannot review a submission, you cannot critique a economic study. There's also general lack of awareness about the concept of health economics in general. So if you sit in a BNT committee and you presented the most perfect, comprehensive pharmacoeconomic evaluation, and if members cannot understand what you're saying, then you're wasting your time and effort. People need to know what you're talking about. They need to, if you talk about ICER, thresholds, qualities, people need to be familiar with these concepts. Also, even if data are available, we do have issue in accessing local information, and I believe this is a cultural issue in the region. We don't share data usually. Most sectors, most countries suffer from this. For example, me in National Guard sector, I don't have access to the database, for example, in King Faisal Hospital or in MOH, unless if you know someone and you request formally. So what are the recommendations? Of course, at national level, it is highly recommended, and it's no longer an option. There is no other way around this. We all need a full establishment of health technology assessment body that can conduct economic analysis and make the decision at national level, because we have similar, the same prevalence data, same price. So there is no need that every sector or every hospital makes the process. We need to develop pharmacoeconomic guidelines that guide the conduct of cost effectiveness or cost utility analysis in research, and also to guide the use of these HTA assessments. Definitely, we need to invest in data collection and in infrastructure for data. We need to invest heavily in educational programs. We need to try now to embed the economic programs in our pharmacy and medicine and all other medical fields, graduate and postgraduate programs. We need also to improve the availability of high quality, transparent evidence to inform decision making. At hospital level, we need to encourage the use of economic evidence for selecting the drugs. With these skyrocketing prices of pharmaceuticals, you cannot assess the clinical efficacy, safety, and all the clinical aspects and just ignore the cost, and then you approve the drug, you end up with a big no from finance or purchasing. Sorry. It's also highly recommended to use the evidence in negotiation. Say perhaps that you don't have HTA, national HTA agency, and you are not a decision maker in the hospital, but you work, for example, in the pharmacy or in the planning, or you are a clinical pharmacist who is doing the evaluation for the BNT committee. Call the company, discuss this with them, tell them that I looked into NICE guidelines and they're saying that your drug is not cost effective in this group of patients, for example, or the cost effectiveness should be improved by 70%, for example, as we saw in the Canadian report. Look into the evidence, discuss it with them, start an evidence-based negotiation, and believe me, and I know this by experience, they will listen to you. Even if the local team are not familiar with this concept, if they raise the case to the regional or the head office, they will listen to them and they will give discounts. You need also to invest in recruiting healthcare professionals who have pharmacoeconomic experience, even if they are their salaries are high, because this would be a cost-effective use of your money, because you will end up with saving in millions. Also, I would like to recommend that when you do the analysis, you look at the variation in efficacy and among different patient groups. For example, if you want to adapt a new concentrated insulin glargine, look at those who will benefit the most. For example, adolescents with type 1 diabetes who have a frequent hypoglycemia. But if you look at adult who is controlled, who doesn't have a history of hypoglycemia, then this extremely drug will not be a cost-effective use of your budget. So, and this is my last slide. This shows the job market for health economists, and opportunities are available in consultancy companies, and also international agencies such as WHO, World Bank, and UNICEF. Pharma companies are now most of the time seeking for health economists. All the future and current reimbursement bodies or HTA agencies will need health economists. Governmental hospitals will need also economists, health insurance companies, and also in the academia. You don't hear people saying this because we don't have expertise, as I said. Most of the times, they look for candidates they don't find, and then they recruit someone from the West consultancy agency who will take perhaps 200,000 riyal or dirham just to conduct one economic evaluation. So this is an area that is that have gap now. If you want to specialize in an area, I think this is one of the areas that where the salaries are high and there is high need as well. This is my last slide, as I said, and I'm ready to take any question. Thank you.